Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. On a stormy night in 1985, Thomas Curry, a lighthouse keeper, accidentally finds a wounded and unconscious woman on the beach. He saves her and takes her to his home. When she wakes up, still in shock, she attacks him directly and also sees a TV in another room and destroys it with her trident, then loses consciousness again. The next day, she wakes up and discovers that Thomas has already healed her wounds. When she sees a fish in the aquarium, she eats it. At this moment, Thomas enters and introduces himself to her, where she reveals that her name is Atlanta, the Queen of Atlantis, and soon they begin to like each other. Thomas and Atlanta spend the next few years together, and they become parents to a son named Arthur. Everything seems lovely until one day a team of Atlantean soldiers invades Atlanta's house with the intention of taking her back under the order of King Orvax. Atlanta reacts and manages to defeat all the soldiers. Then she informs Thomas that she must return to Atlantis, otherwise, the king will send more soldiers, but before leaving she gives him the trident to give to Arthur when he grows up. Then she stands up and promises to return to him someday, then jumps back into the ocean. A few years later, we see Arthur on a school excursion to the Boston Aquarium. He is seen talking to the fish, and two bullies start insulting him and making fun of him for it. A shark then starts hitting the glass, cracking it slightly and scaring everyone else. Arthur puts his hand on the glass, and suddenly the shark calms down. All the people there watch in amazement as all the marine creatures gather right behind Arthur, and his eyes glow yellow. 20 years later, a team of pirates led by Jesse Kane and his son David takes over a Russian submarine. After they have subdued everyone on board, the pirates see that something has collided with them. It turns out to be Arthur, who is now an adult known to many as Aquaman. He pushes the submarine to the surface, and then goes inside it, starting a fight against the pirates, and soon defeats them all. At this point, David enters the battle and starts fighting Arthur, who easily defeats him as well. But before finishing David, Jesse, his father, intervenes and fires an RPG at Arthur. They thought they had eliminated Aquaman, but Arthur gets up completely unharmed. Then he counterattacks by piercing Jesse in the shoulder with a steel pipe. Upon exiting, Jesse tries to shoot Arthur, but he misses and blows a hole in the submarine, causing water to start infiltrating, and he gets trapped under a torpedo. David desperately tries to free his father and pleads for Arthur's help, but he refuses to save him, saying that they both killed innocent people. David continues trying to free his father, who knows his time is running out, and he pulls out a grenade before ordering David to leave and seek revenge by killing Arthur. David exits the submarine as he hears his father detonate the grenade. He escapes in another submarine while Arthur rescues the other Russian crew members. Afterward, Arthur joins his father, who was waiting at the docks for Atlanta, as he had done every day for the past few years. They go to a bar to have a drink, where they see a news report about Aquaman's heroic actions. Thomas knows it was Arthur and feels proud of his son, reminding him that he is destined to unite the surface world and the realm of Atlantis. Then, a group of bikers approaches Arthur, seemingly looking for a fight, but they actually just want to take pictures with him. In the depths of Atlantis, Arthur's half-brother, ORM, is with his mentor Vulko as they prepare to meet with King Nereus. ORM wants Nereus to form an alliance with him in a supposed effort to unite the other sea kingdoms, but ORM actually wants an excuse to attack the surface world, believing that they will attack Atlantis first. Nereus is also aware of Arthur's existence, but ORM refuses to acknowledge his half-brother or that his mother lived among the surface dwellers. At this moment, an explosion hits the area, and a submarine comes in for an attack. ORM and Nereus gather their forces to retaliate, and ORM manages to send the submarine into the depths of the ocean. Nereus is then convinced to join ORM as they prepare to send a message to the surface. Later, as Arthur and his father leave the bar, Princess Mara, Nereus's daughter, approaches him and warns him that ORM is planning to declare war on the surface, and billions of people will die on both sides. Arthur doesn't seem interested, even when Mara tells him that Vulko has found a way to the lost trident of Atlanta, which can be used to defeat ORM and allow him to claim his place as the king of Atlantis. But Arthur refuses and says that if ORM attacks, he will treat him the same way his people treated his mother, mercilessly. Meanwhile, in the North Sea, ORM and his subordinates find David. He hands him a bag full of gold coins, but David says he doesn't need his money, he just wants Aquaman for revenge. And from here, we realize that ORM was the one who hired David and his father to steal the submarine to use it as an excuse to attack the surface. Meanwhile, a massive tidal wave approaches the continent while Arthur was taking his father home. He tries to avoid it by driving fast, but inevitably it hits their truck and drags them away. Already underwater, he swims back looking for his father but can't find him. Suddenly, Mara appears and helps him, finding and getting Thomas out of the water, then removes the water from his lungs, making him breathe again. Then, everyone looks towards the coast, where we can see several warships and submarines crushed there, and Mara tells Arthur that this is just the beginning. At this moment, Arthur agrees to join her to stop ORM. The next day, the two head towards a cliff to dive into the ocean, the same place where Vulko taught Arthur to swim and master his Atlantean instincts. Arthur and Mara leap into the ocean and then board their vessel. Mara shows Atlantis to him for the first time and then takes him to a sunken ship to find Vulko. Vulko tells Arthur that the legend of the Trident of Atlantis is real. It belonged to the founding King Atlan and was forged from a powerful steel sent by Poseidon, designed to allow someone worthy to rule Atlantis. He also recounts the history of Atlantis, the city that thrived on the surface and made unbelievable technological advancements millennia ago, in an era before the universal flood. But their quest for power led to their downfall, and Atlantis sank with the rising ocean like never before seen. However, their advancements also helped the Atlanteans evolve and breathe underwater, while others regressed and transformed into monsters. Atlan then self-exiled and spent the rest of his existence there. Vulko provides Arthur and Mara with a cylinder to locate Atlan's final resting place when they are suddenly attacked by Atlantis soldiers. Mara and Vulko escape to avoid being seen and have their plan discovered, while Arthur fights them and manages to defeat some, but another more powerful group arrives and captures him. Arthur is taken before ORM, where he meets his half-brother for the first time. ORM believes their mother was executed for having a child from the surface and blames Arthur for her death. He also explains his stance and hatred for the surface world due to the damage they have caused to the oceans over the last century. He offers Arthur a chance to leave and never return, but Arthur challenges him to a duel. Despite Vulko and Mara's objections, ORM accepts. Arthur prepares for the duel, wielding his mother's trident. On the other side, Vulko asks Arthur if he remembers everything he taught him, then a flashback shows Vulko training him to properly use his mother's trident and teaching him a move that creates a kind of water shield. Young Arthur believed Atlanta abandoned him because she didn't love him or his father, but Vulko told him she was executed, thrown to the creatures of the trench. In the present, Arthur goes to the Ring of Fire where the duel begins in front of a crowd, most of whom are on ORM's side and call Arthur a traitor. The fight begins, and Arthur initially performs well against ORM, who at one point tries to drag him into the lava to kill him, but he escapes. They continue to have an incredibly fierce fight, then ORM uses his trident and with great force manages to destroy Arthur's trident. Mara intervenes and pulls Arthur out of the arena before ORM can deliver the fatal blow. The two then escape on their aquatic transport. ORM and his men follow them and shoot down their transport, but Arthur and Mara manage to escape at the last moment, and ORM believes they are dead. However, they hide inside the mouth of a whale that Arthur summons to take them to safety above the surface. Afterward, ORM discovers that Mara is still alive and tracks her location with the bracelet he gave her earlier. He orders his soldiers to find and kill Arthur and Mara, but Nereus forces ORM to ensure Mara is brought back safely, or he will no longer support him. ORM then goes after David and allows him to lead the soldiers to find Arthur and Mara, providing him with Atlantean weaponry to ensure David can kill Arthur and Mara. David makes some personal modifications to the weapons and suits to his liking. Meanwhile, Arthur and Mara board an aircraft to take them to the desert, and they parachute out without parachutes. Mara tells Arthur that the desert was once covered by the ocean, and they walk until they fall into a hole that leads them to an ancient temple where Atlan's trident was forged. Mara places the cylinder on a round platform, but nothing happens until she realizes it needs to be activated with water. After doing so, a holographic message from Atlan is activated, with instructions on how to locate the trident. Arthur finds a bottle with a map inside that indicates their next destination is Sicily, Italy. On the other hand, ORM meets the Fisher King in an attempt to convince him to join his cause, but the king refuses, and ORM kills him in front of his wife and daughter. He then orders them to prepare for war and await his orders. Meanwhile, Arthur and Mara arrive in Sicily and enjoy a brief period among the surface-dwelling humans. Arthur gives red flowers to Mara, who thinks they're food and eats them. Then, they find a location with statues of past leaders. Arthur discovers he must place the bottle in the hand of the Romulus statue, as per Atlan's message, and when he does, he and Mara learn the direction of the trident. At this moment, David, now going by Black Manta, arrives with his henchmen and attacks them, launching Arthur to the other side and going after him. Mara is surrounded, but being a skilled fighter, she fights the guards and easily takes them down, but she flees when she sees more of them arriving. Arthur is injured a few times with a special Atlantean blade and thrown into a house. He is pursued and continues to be attacked by Black Manta, who wants revenge for his father's death. Meanwhile, Mara runs from the guards pursuing her across rooftops and narrowly avoids being hit by their weapons. At one point, Mara is caught, and after being hit, she falls into a wine store. Arthur tries to help people by getting them off the street, but his enemy arrives and hits him with an electrified harpoon. But a furious Arthur pulls him in and shows his strength by throwing him to the ground. Mara is grabbed, but she manages to damage her enemy's armor, who, realizing he needs water to survive, sees the toilet as the only solution. Mara, noticing there's plenty of liquid to use from the wines, breaks the bottles and uses the liquid to finish off her enemies. Black Manta has his armor damaged, and Arthur, seeing this, picks up 2 heavy metal balls and throws them at him. Black Manta tries to retaliate but has his helmet destroyed and falls into the sea. Mara goes to help Arthur and realizes they were followed because of the bracelet ORM gave her. She removes it and destroys it. Then, Mara tends to Arthur's wounds, and they sail to the trench. There, Arthur tells Mara that he feels responsible for David becoming his enemy after refusing to save his father. He says he's not worthy of being a leader or king, but Mara reassures him, saying he's wrong and that he is the bridge between man and the sea. Back in Atlantis, ORM plans to invade the surface with his newly united tribes. He discovers that Vulko was working against him and orders his men to arrest him. While sailing during a storm, Arthur and Mara are attacked by the horrifying creatures of the trench. They fight back, but a large horde of them appears and destroys their ship, forcing them to jump into the water. They descend into the abyss, followed by thousands of creatures that live in the trench realm. Then, they see a distant light coming from a kind of portal and quickly follow it. Fortunately, the creatures dislike light and stop pursuing them. Arthur and Mara enter the portal, which is like a tornado with multiple lightning bolts, launching them into another part of the sea. An unconscious Mara reappears on the other side and is almost devoured by a gigantic creature, but something quickly saves her. She is then taken to a place known as the Hidden Sea at the Earth's core, where Arthur was also sent. Mara is fearful of who saved her but quickly discovers it is Queen Atlanta. Arthur, recognizing her as his mother, embraces her joyfully. They go near a waterfall, and she explains that she has been trapped there for 20 years because the portal that brought them there doesn't allow them to return. Arthur tells his mother that Thomas has been waiting for her all these years, which makes her very happy. Atlanta says the only way out is with the trident, which only the one true king can wield. Arthur, having no other option, goes but is warned that the location is guarded by a monstrous, enormous creature. Nonetheless, Arthur proceeds to attempt to retrieve their only way out. Inside the immense underwater area, he sees the trident glowing and emanating powerful waves of energy around it, still in the hands of Atlan's remains. Suddenly, he encounters Kara, the giant monster guarding the trident. Arthur tries to take the trident, but Kara then strikes him a few times. Then, he uses his powers to communicate with the creature, something only Atlan was also able to do. Kara then asks Arthur what makes him think he's worthy of wielding Atlan's trident. He responds that he's not worthy, he just wants to save both the worlds, the oceans, and the land. Kara then is convinced and allows Arthur to try to take the trident from Atlan's skeleton but says no one has ever succeeded, and if he doesn't, he will devour him too. Arthur then approaches and feels the power emanating from the trident connecting with his. Confident, he manages to take it and gains greater power and a new golden and green suit. Back in Atlantis, ORM now calls himself the Ocean Master, and his forces gather to launch his attack and conquer another marine kingdom before attacking the surface world. However, they are interrupted by Arthur and the monstrous Kara, who emerge from the Earth's core. A tremendous battle ensues. Arthur and Mara lead the forces of marine creatures to fight against and defeat ORM's army. The creatures eliminate ORM's men, leading other Atlanteans to renounce their loyalty to him since Arthur now wields Atlan's trident and, by their holiest law, is their new king. ORM then fights Arthur again, but this time, Arthur forces him to fight on the surface. Arthur uses the trident's power to his advantage and, using Vulko's move, manages to defeat ORM and break his trident, leaving him kneeling. Arthur decides to spare ORM's life, even though ORM demands to be killed. At that moment, Atlanna emerges from the ocean to reunite with her son ORM, and the two embrace. Afterward, Vulko orders the soldiers to arrest ORM, and he accepts. Arthur tells ORM he is willing to talk to him when he's ready. The Atlanteans then accept Arthur as their new king. Back at the lighthouse, Thomas goes to the docks as he always does, and to his surprise, Atlanna finally appears, returning to him. In the movie's final scene, David is shown alive and is found by Stephen Shin, a conspiracy theorist obsessed with Atlantis and Aquaman. When David wakes up, he finds Stephen investigating the Atlantean weapon. David offers to show him how it works if he helps find a way to kill Aquaman.